Hello and welcome. It's Mark Vickers. I'm the PrintVis Senior Consultant here at Sabre Limited. And today's video is going to be on speed tables. We're going to take a look at the speed tables. So let's get started. Here we are at the Role Center. And I'm going to show you two different ways to navigate to speed tables. The first way is sort of there's a couple different ways we can get to this. Is we can go to Departments, and of course that loads these up, and I can go to, you can see that really defaults, this is from my previous item, defaults to the Cost Center. So I could go here and I could go to Configurations, but if you're not sort of at that spot, you can look at from Cost Centers, and you can navigate there. The other spot you can go to is looking straight at estimating. Now, if you wanted to go straight and you're comfortable to do this, you could see from estimating, I bring up this list of all the links to settings for estimating, and one of them, of course, you have scrap tables and speed tables. So if I open speed tables, of course, it gives me this list, and depending on how your comfort level, if you know your code numbers that are set up or that you've set up, or these titles, you can see there's a lot of repeated printings and make ready. So you kind of have to know through your code which print unit you're talking about. And sometimes this can be confusing for people. So that's why generally the other way that we can do that is we can go through to our Cost Center. And let's pull that up again. And now we've got a reference point. And now we want to go into our configuration, and it opens that configuration for the Speedmaster in this case, and we're going to edit that. And this we have separate videos that will talk about configurations and cost centers and things like that, but today this is a nice way as you're first starting out to get that link sort of mentally as to where you're navigating and start to get that comfort level. So here we are at the operation list for the configuration of our Heidelberg. You can see we have our basic make ready setup, blending of colors. We have our make ready, our plate make ready, which and then printing. So what I wanted to do is, here's the column speed tables. Now if you don't have that visible for whatever reason, you can always go to choose columns, and you'll find it listed there, and you can bring up your speed table and add it so that it becomes visible. But I have it visible, so I'm just going to go down and click on that field, and when I drop that down, it gives me, there's my list of speed tables, which is what I saw in the other view. But if I go advanced, it gives me the ability to go into that one and I can edit it. Now speed tables, you can copy it from this area. If you're setting one up, you want to use one that's already set and make it and copy it. That's the function that's available through that button. Give it a new name, and now you've copied one that you'd like to use. But we're going to edit this one. So here it is. Here's my speed table. So this is this running speed table used for calculating my run speeds for estimates on my Heidelberg. And so we have settings up here that you go through. These are predominantly set. They're pretty standard for this application. But what I have down in the lower part is the actual values that we're using to calculate our speed runs. And like other tables that we have available in PrintVis, we have different columns that we can use for parameters. So for example, if you have a certain run speed lists that you like to use for certain types of products, you can categorize these by the product group. Or a size, if you're working on a piece of equipment that runs at a different rate of speed for large sheets than it does for a small sheet. Of course, for a printing press, that doesn't necessarily apply, but speed tables are used for all kinds of different applications within the PrintVis program, so that we can tie it to a size, and we would represent a series of running speeds for a size, and then another series for a different size, and the estimate will look up which size it needs to match up with to calculate its run value. In this category, we're using it by paperweight. So the first set of numbers from quantities, and this is our quantity that it's setting to calculate our run value, has no weight factor. So anything that does not fit to the other ones, the 80 pound and the 200 pound, these are M weights of my printed sheet stock, then it will use this value. So from 0 up to 80 pound, 80 M of paper, it wants to use this series. And then what it looks at is it says from a quantity of 0 to 999, it will run 4,985 sheets in 1 hour. And that's how that calculation line determines what the run speed should be. And then we enter our next line. And I should say at this point too that keep in mind, for most of your cost center equipment, these have been loaded at the rapid start setup when you first get started by Sabre. And so these speed tables already exist. You have the ability to create a new one. That function is just up here. You can create a new one and you just assign the code number and the description and the other necessary values that pertain to your application. And then you can add your lines. But in this case, we're just going to look at the editing, because you're going to do this probably most often in your adjustment phase. So the next quantity, when it hits 1,000 sheets, it's going to speed up your run by a little over about 1,000 sheets to 5,982 sheets per hour. And again, if you don't like these, you can go in and say, well, no, I'm going to run my equipment at 5,500 per hour. And then you're going to say, when I hit 1,000, I'm going to be running at 6,000 per hour. So these are there to edit and adjust. At 2,500, it'll run at 7,038. So based on my setting here of accumulating, the way this will be interpreted is, if I have 2,500 sheets, it's going to take the first 999 sheets and run it at 5,500 and calculate a time. And then it's going to take from the 1,000 sheet to the 2,400th sheet and calculate that at 6,000 per hour and provide a time. And then when it hits the 25, let's say it's 2,700 is my sheet total, it's going to run the last 200 sheets at 7,038 and calculate the time for that. And it will add or accumulate those times to produce my total run. And of course, that in this case is why we choose this setup to simulate a typical press operation, where as they're doing their initial run, they will start to run it slower, and then they tend to speed it up. In some cases, some people might look at it and say, well, by the time my press operator is running at full speed, counting good sheets, they're already at their full, one of their higher. So you can have this setting exactly how you want to simulate your press operators running. And of course, you would probably have a different speed table, and you can see that. You can have a separate speed table for your make-ready run of how that sets up. And then, of course, the next category is when it sees that it's 80 pound or 80 M paper and up to just before 200, it's going to use these set of values. Of course, I've thrown them off a little bit by throwing in my other one here, but I just wanted to show you how you could edit that. And then the third category that we've set in this table is for 200 M weight paper and higher. Okay, so typically what we tend to see is the lighter weight stocks will run slower. If we go back to what I originally had setting, the lower speeds for the thinner stocks, we get into 80 pound kind of text weight categories, and we speed up our press. And then as we get into the heavier weights, which leans into the cover weights, then of course you're going to have to slow down your press again. And that's how we're able to simulate that in our speed table. Now the other thing that we saw, let me just open this one. This is my plate adjustment in terms of times. And again, I edit this one. Now this one looks a little bit different. On the other ones, you saw running speeds. So in this category, what we're looking at is the first plate typically takes a little bit longer. And what this line is saying, it's still a cumulative, so it takes your first one as we go higher, but in that first one, we are saying that the unit of time is 4, so we can produce 4 make-readies in 1 hour. Once we hit, and the same would be the same rate for the second plate. But when we hit the third plate, we're starting to get a little bit of efficiency going. So we start to say that we can now, this line would dictate that we can produce 6 plates in 1 hour. Another way of doing it, I'm just going to show you as an example. I'll leave it as a 0 just so I have a line, is I can say that it takes 6 minutes, we produce 1 plate every 10 minutes. So it's, let's make it easy with 0.25. So 1 plate every 15 minutes, quarter of an hour. So I just want to show you that you have the option to enter both ways, either a unit of measure for 1 hour or how long 1 unit takes in its time value. Okay, I'm just going to delete this, otherwise it will mess me up in the future. We'll delete the line, say yes, and there we go, it's set. So again, we have parameter values that we can set if they're necessary to dictate how that works. But that's the different style of setting that we have for this one. And that's how we set speed tables. And I want to thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at Sabre Limited, and we'd be happy to help you out. And have a good day.